All right, so let's talk about the Leadership Circle and Bob Anderson, who developed it. Where did it come from and how was it developed?
So the Leadership Circle profile is a 360 feedback tool. And Bob developed it having worked with another organization that had a different model like that. But he felt that there was a lot more that could be done with it. And so over an extended period, he helped to integrate, I think there are about 12 different modern psychological theories that are built into the framework. And essentially the model, like any 360 feedback process, if I'm the subject, I will complete a set of questions on myself and I'll send out to assessors such as Renu, yourself, and anything up to about 18 others. And they will all give their feedback, and then it all gets plotted, my comparison versus how everybody else collectively sees how I'm showing up. And what Bob believed was possible was that we could reveal to ourselves through this process that how, I'm going to use the expression, reactive we're being versus how creative we're being. And in revealing that information to ourselves so that we, as leaders, become more self-aware, it can point to a development pathway that will help us find more authentic expression of who we truly are in a way that allows us to be more effective leaders. And so that's really what he was aiming to do. And I would say he's been really successful.
And when he put all those theories together, he created what he called the unified theory of leadership.
Yeah, so perhaps it would be good to explain the model. What does it look like?
So the model is a circle, which of course signifies wholeness. And there's an inner dimension and an outer dimension. Is divided between reactive and creative. And in the creative dimension, which obviously is the positive side, the creative dimension has 5 elements, which is relatedness, self-awareness, authenticity, systems awareness, and achieving. So you can hear it's people and task. And then the bottom dimension has 3 reactive tendencies. The 3 reactive tendencies is controlling, protecting, and complying, right? That's inner dimension. The outer dimension has the leadership competencies for each of these dimensions. There's 18 leadership competencies that are made up of these 5 dimensions, which is really fantastic because if you say, okay, I need to grow in authenticity, what should I focus on? Okay, you should focus on integrity, courageous authenticity. So it's really helpful from that perspective.
Very good. I think also the what the model points to at the center, right in the center, it's just got the word identity.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think it's very helpful to have that there because the way we're taught in the debrief, of course, is to ask the client about who they currently, it's almost like, who are you currently? What are you telling yourself about who you are? Yes. Because, of course, our identity tends to be fluid as we mature. And we invite the clients to reflect on what were your big influences in your childhood, and then in the early part of your career, perhaps university, and what's your current context? So, what's going on for you right now as a leader, and who knows what that might be? Because the results that you get do not define you. what it is it's like a snapshot in time of you responding to your current context. And so having done the model more than once myself, the results can vary both up and down, depending on your current context and how you're responding to it. But understanding that is crucial to also that talks to or invites a dialogue about who am I becoming and who do I want to be. Yeah, and so that helps with the development conversation too. Do you have anything to add on that?
What I like about it is it actually gives the circle, encapsulates the whole person. So, what are our creative competencies in terms of how we act in the world, and then what's below that in terms of our habits of mind that we've developed as, we've matured and grown, maybe from a very early age, though, that might hold us back. So for me, it's really useful. It's got the leadership competencies coming from Zenger and Folkman and some other very well-validated backgrounds. But it also looks at consciousness or what may not be in our consciousness, our blind spots almost, that we can also become aware of what might be holding us back. And so I like the shadow light aspect of this. And, there's a gift and a burden in both.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's not that we dismiss what's in the reactive, tendencies at the bottom, but it's that awareness that we still holding on to them, perhaps because the gifts outweigh what we perceive to be the burdens.
Yeah.
And then do we make a choice to let go of that, to really show up in, our full potential?
Yeah, and I think that one of the things that, as a coach, but also as a subject of the 360 feedback, because I remember the first time I got my leadership circle profile, I got really, really annoyed. How come these people hadn't told me all this? And the debrief process is really helpful because, and this is all part of Bob's whole philosophy about helping human beings grow, that, for example, if I recall correctly, I had ambition. I had ambition as one of my reactive tendencies, along with arrogance and I think it was belonging. So I had one of the reactive things in all three areas in the reactive side of the model. And in the debrief, what the invitation is, again, it's really, it's linking back to what we were discussing earlier in a previous conversation about what are you aware of, and then what can you do with your focus then now that you're aware of that. And so I had a really big blind spot around these things. And so the blind spot gets revealed. Now, at first, that feels really uncomfortable. And then the coach assisted me with helping me understand the benefits and drawbacks of each of these styles. And understanding that, instead of it being something that just drove me, especially when I got triggered on anything, understanding that brought that awareness into really a different part of the brain, into my neocortex, so I could really think about it. When the ambition piece is kicking in, what am I telling myself? What's the old story I was telling myself? Yeah. Or when the arrogance piece is kicking in, what's the old story? But also, and this is the thing I find particularly helpful, it gave you an appreciation of how these reactive styles had served us and helped us get us here. And so, like, an example that really stands out for me is, in the arrogance trait, part of it gives you self-confidence. And in my life, especially when I worked in the resources industry, I did find myself in a couple of very, very scary situations where things were getting out of control and people thought they were going to die. But that trait allowed me to stay calm and focused and get focused on what needed to be done now to make everything safe. And that's one of the benefits of that style. However, you don't want to use that style in anything but a crisis. And really understanding the subtlety of that and appreciating that, okay, I can switch that on now, but most of the time I'll have that switched off. Yeah. And so this is one of the things I love about the model. It gives us a deeper understanding of ourselves in a way that's very appreciative. And so I think I would credit the model with improving my relationship with myself. Because, I didn't blame myself for having these reactive styles. Instead, I got a real appreciation of them. And that's the key to then having them work for you in the very few occasions when you need them rather than when you're triggered.
Yeah, what I really appreciate about the model too is it draws on Robert Keegan's model of adult development, the levels of adult development, and his work too on the immunity to change. What is it that gets in the way? And leaders absolutely get it, that we need to have the same complexity of mind to be able to deal with the complexity in our environment.
Yes.
And what Robert Keegan does in his framework of adult development is talk about those 3 stages of the socialized mind, where we are doing everything to feel safe, to belong and be worthy, and to fit in, which is absolutely essential as social beings.
Leadership.
Absolutely. And then, we can have that self-authoring mind where we take authority over our lives and make our decisions based on our values. And then we can move into that self-transforming mind, which is actually what the complex world requires, is to realize that I don't hold the only truth. I am, one of many selves. It's what Ken Wilber would call the integral mind. And we need to be able to have that flexibility of mind, because Keegan draws on subject-object theory, because when we're in the socialized mind, we're held by it, and then we are subject to that.
Yes.
And then we can move out and make that object. We can see it and make some choices, as you said, Malk. When does it serve me? When doesn't it serve me? And how can I use that? And then we have the self-authoring mind, which still has a little bit of me in it, and we're stuck. We're caught in it. We're subject to that. But then when we can make it become, make it object, we can see it for what it is, and then we can shift to that next level. So it's kind of, it doesn't mean we lose any of this. It's transcend and include, and that's what I really feel is the power of the model, because it is there all in us, but we get caught. We become subject to, and we can't see it.
So that's what I say to clients when I start, because typically clients, people have been on lots of 360s. And so I usually start by saying the reason I love this is, to me, it's the latest leadership thinking, this unified theory as you're talking about it, that it's a lot of the other 360s haven't been updated, taking into account the world that we're in today, especially around adaptive challenges. And so behind the leadership circle, you have the consciousness map of Keegan of socialized, self-authoring, and self-transforming. And, he says 65 to 70% of adults are in the socialized mind. So everyone beats himself up for being in the socialized mind, but actually most adults are there, right? And I presented this the other day to one of the big resources company, because this is the why to embark on a transformation program. Because the socialized mind, one of the ways to describe it is the faithful follower. Well, this company that's what you've been trained to do for 30 years, is to be the faithful follower. And now their whole industry is being disrupted. And this way of thinking and acting and leading, you can't get there. So we started just with those 3 shifts: socialized, self-authoring, self-transforming, and they got it. And then you could see why this tool is so unique in solving the challenges that leaders have today.
Because in that self-transforming space, we have to be able to hold paradox. We have to be able to hold discomfort. We have to hold the fact that I'm not the sole holder of the truth.
Yes.
It really enables us to see connections and the interdependencies and the intradependencies, you know, within me and the team and the world, which is kind of here, you know, to be able to hold that. And I feel it's such a beautiful way of awakening that in using the leadership circle.
And that's why those competencies of the self-transforming mind are at the top of the circle.
Yes.
So that's where authenticity, courageous authenticity, systems awareness, and integrity and self-awareness. So a lot of the other 360s don't yet have the leadership competencies that are needed in today's challenges. So
Yeah, I think one of the best examples of courageous authenticity is occasionally when you see a leader who has obviously been developing themselves, and they're in dialogue with, say, a group, and they're being challenged, and you can see them having an awareness. It's almost like they're on the balcony of the belief that they're having, and they're examining that belief because they're holding it lightly. And some new data is coming in, some new insight, and so that belief can get superseded. And so it's the ability to shift their own beliefs in the moment. And that requires, well, first of all, it requires real authenticity and courage. You know, that I don't have all the answers, and I'm not infallible, and it's okay for me to be vulnerable in front of the group and hold a greater possibility. And of course, that helps the whole group.
yes. And you know, the other reason we love it is because it can be very confronting. Some of the other diagnostics can be very nice.
Yes.
And especially for the very reactive, let's say toxic leaders, they go, yeah, I know that. So what? That's how I lead, right? And it is very confronting.
Yeah.
And I'll speak personally. You talked about your one. My one came out very high on perfectionism and controlling. And I also had I know, surprise. And I was like, yeah, I know that, but does it have to be that high? And this was the one tool that made me shift, because I often say this for those who are perfectionists out there. We secretly think it's good. Even though I know it's a reactive style. And this confronting in my face of getting this feedback, I thought, okay, enough. I'm shifting this. And it was only because of this tool.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's so that links nicely to the other really great element of the tool. There's so much research behind it. Each one of the competencies has a correlation with leadership effectiveness, which is just amazing. And perfectionism actually it's very slightly positive.
I know.
4% correlation with leadership effectiveness. Think about how much energy goes into perfectionism as a trait, especially in professional organizations. And it's only 4% effective from a leadership point of view. Interestingly, the two styles that are highest are being purposeful and visionary, and fostering team play. Yeah. And I find that really interesting. And then, of course, if any of you have read about the importance of play in developing intelligence and experimentation and courage, etc. It's such an innate part of being a social mammal. So many of there's so much research in this space. But fun and play it's almost like they are the enabler of creativity and really great group outcomes. And so any leader that can foster that is basically tapping into real value in their organization.
Yeah, what I also love about the tool and appreciate it is, one of the behaviors is pleasing. And so, if you hold a value, potentially limiting value of being liked, you can see how pleasing gets in the way of being decisive,
Yes.
in the creative competencies, and just even making that connection, about how the opposites kind of work.
Yes.
A spike in one often has a reduction
Yes.
in the reactive tendencies. And if there's a spike here, then there's a contraction here. Sometimes, for me, that was really, a big aha moment when I did this, and having to decide, okay, I'm going to give away that being liked value, and I'd rather be respected, and I'm going to say no,
Yes.
right, and be more decisive, because that's actually going to be of more service for me being a leader.
Yes, and of course the benefit of actually growing up with the pleasing trait is that you learn really good social skills.
And it's really good in terms of, the caring connection and all those, the ones that are close in the circle. You can absolutely, I could see the benefit of that, but it was really evident how it could potentially be a drawback, and just making that connection itself can be so powerful in saying, okay, better wake up and do something about this.
Yes.
If I want to.
So it's the people and the task.
Yes.
So that's really how the circle is divided. And we usually have a strength in one or the other. And the key is
Balancing.
and the research actually comes out that it's people first and then task is the most effective leadership.
We've talked about it very much at the individual level. I just also want to bring it out that it's so powerful when a team does it. And then, you can share some of the results in the team, looking at what is our collective strengths, what are our collective areas to focus on, what are our collective limiting beliefs, all those kinds of things. So in terms of opening up space for psychological safety and vulnerability and bringing it together, it can be really powerful at that team level as well, not just the individual level.
Can I share a story? This was about a month ago, and we were debriefing it for a top team. And one of the biggest shifts for the team was to create deeper connections and open, honest feedback. Mm-hmm. And so what we normally do is we debrief each person one-to-one on their leadership circle profile, and we ask them to come away with what's your one big thing, a from to shift. Mm-hmm. So then each of them came to this meeting, and we were going to look at the team profile. And so as we normally do, we put the big mat in the room, and we kind of stand, where's our strengths, where's our areas for growth. And then we asked each person to stand in their shift, their from, and then their to. And when we shared that, we opened the floor, like, does that feel right for this person? And then some people said, yeah, I really agree with that. Somebody said, what would happen if you moved here? And there was this beautiful, open conversation, supportive, heartfelt conversation. We went around. I hadn't actually planned this, but it went like that. And at the end, the CEO said, she said, I've never had such a transformational moment with this team. And the shift that we wanted to make, we just did.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, collectively. Yes. Yeah, there's something in the power of that. And I've also done similar work with teams, and also added in a layer of, from my strengths, what are my offers to the team? Yes. Oh, yeah. And what are my requests? Yes. And that is incredibly powerful as well. Yes. What are my requests for support, and what can I offer here, which is not just empowering, but it's also a sense of humility.
Yeah.
Within the team, in terms of asking for help, because often, in my experience, people have got to the C-suite or the top team believing I have to do it all myself.
Yeah.
Right. And then just saying, no, we're in this together and we're actually learning together. It can be incredibly powerful.
The resistance to using the tool, it would be worth talking about that for a moment. I think any responsible, caring, HR director of an organization who wasn't familiar with it. I think it's reasonable for them to be a bit concerned about how detailed the tool is and the potential vulnerability that could arise. And the response I would give to that is that, first of all, it's